The sweet, sweet sound of fans cheering you on. And the even sweeter sound of Formula One glory.
Charles Leclerc has coped brilliantly. He won in Spa. He wins in Monza.
To be honest, not many drivers get to experience this, whether they're a bad driver in a bad car and, well, they tend to crash out every single race weekend and end up being dropped by the end of the season. Or they're a good driver and they're stuck in a bad car, kind of in a bad situation. Glory might not be guaranteed, but you know what is guaranteed? Another Max Verstappen race win.
Max Verstappen wins for Max Verstappen. Max Verstappen. Max Verstappen. Max Verstappen. Max Verstappen. Max Verstappen. Max Verstappen.
With that said, this is overrated versus underrated Formula One drivers. And fairly rated, but it sounds a bit weird if I put that in the title and keep on talking. Fairly rated is there as well. A long time ago, when Alonso was still winning races, you see, Daniel Ricciardo used to be a driver feared in any realm, any dimension, any track, any situation. He was feared by pretty much everybody. One of the best drivers on the grid, and potentially could have been one of the best drivers of all time. That is if he won a couple more championships than he has. I mean, yes, Daniel Ricciardo and Lewis Hamilton combined have a total of 7 world championships. 7 of those being Lewis Hamilton. But back in the day, truly, he was one of the GOATs. Dive bomb here, dive bomb there. Win here, win there. He was... But the second he joined McLaren, it was kind of downhill. Now, yes, he did peak in Monza. That was good, but it was not good since then. He got booted out. Contract just got ripped in half and was like, we don't want you here. He wasn't good at all. And now this year on RB, he is yet again quite dreadful, being slapped up by Yuki Tsunoda of all people. And I'm sorry to all the Daniel Ricciardo fans, but Daniel Ricciardo is maybe a slightly bit overrated. Maybe Drive to Survive overhyped him a tiny bit. For what he's worth, the name Ricciardo, for the amount of money that RB are probably paying him, his performances have not been good for a number of years. It's not just this year. I'm talking about last year a bit, 2022, 2021. It wasn't good. It hasn't been good. My bro is overrated as fuck, and that's just how it is. No hard feelings. Usually in Formula One, when it comes to who's the GOAT, who's the best at anything, it always pretty much always comes down to the numbers. Lewis Hamilton, 7-time world champion. Michael Schumacher, 7-time world champion. Sebastian Vettel, 4-time world. You know what? They're all in the GOAT category, but someone who is quite criminally underrated for like the GOAT status of Formula One has to be Fernando Alonso. Now, yes, he's a 2-time world champion. He's been racing for what's felt like 100 years, maybe 200. He started racing in the Stone Age, now in modern day, and he's still putting up numbers like we've never seen before. Now, yes, he's a respected driver by pretty much everybody, but I still do think he's a tiny bit criminally underrated for the GOAT status of Formula One, for the amount of things that he's done in Renault, in McLaren, in Alpine, and now in the Aston Martin. He deserves a bit more respect than he has. For the last 2 years, he's been absolutely slapping up his teammate in Aston Martin. Now, fair enough, his teammate is Lance Stroll. But there are some days where I'd take Fernando Alonso over Lewis Hamilton, and that's saying a lot. Charles Leclerc, Charles Leclerc, Charles Leclerc.
Charles Leclerc has coped brilliantly. He won in Spa. He wins in Monza.
His on-track performances are some that matches the bipolarity of Jekyll and Hyde. You see, one day or one race weekend, he could be absolutely fighting for the win, fighting for the championship if given the right car, and then the next weekend he decides to put it into the wall. Not sure whether on some days he's morphing into an Ayrton Senna or on other days he's morphing into a, say, Nikita Mazepin, but it just isn't good. And for that reason, I think he's fairly rated. His quali pace, usually his race pace is pretty insane, but his crashes, oh dearie, dearie, dear. He's made fun of enough for everyone to know that he's a crash-prone driver, but he's also complimented enough for everybody to know that he's, well, the real deal. Fairly rated. He's fairly rated. Like, yeah, he's fairly... If I were to say Logan Sargeant to any average Formula One fan, this is probably what they think about. And after seeing those crashes, you probably also think about Nikita Mazepin. Now, Nikita Mazepin was probably as bad as Logan Sargeant, maybe even worse. And for Nikita Mazepin to catch that much slack as he does, well, even up to this point today, is saying a lot. Not saying that he's a good driver, but saying that he was an absolute horrid driver who deserved that 1 year in Formula 1 and deserved to be booted and disrespected for the rest of his lifetime. And if we're comparing Nikita Mazepin to Logan Sargeant, both absolutely dreadful drivers crash as much as each other. Now tell me, why has Logan Sargeant had 2 seasons in Formula 1? Why are people backing him as much as they currently do? And for that sole reason, I genuinely think that Logan Sargeant is overrated. His performances are rivaling Nikita Mazepin and Nicholas Latifi, and it's just, he has a bit too much hype for what he delivers to the team. If you want to see a Ferrari race win in a Italian country, then you should probably like and subscribe because Imola's coming up soon, and we'd love to see a Ferrari win, so do that, please. Esteban Ocon might be the single most hated driver on the grid, hated by every single fan, pretty much, and hated by every single one of his teammates.
Never in my life I saw a defense like Esteban. Never.
Him and Sergio Perez didn't get along. Him and Fernando Alonso didn't get along. And to say that him and Pierre Gasly are getting along, I'd be lying. Not only his teammates, Max Verstappen hates him. Everybody hates him. He has a couple podiums to his name, a lot of points to his name, and a single race win to his name. And for that reason, he is pretty fairly rated in my opinion. Hated by a lot of people, but on occasions has some good performances. Minimal fans, and the only people that actually like him are French patriotic people.
Un gros sac à et tu vaux pas mieux qu'elle.
So for that single reason, I'd have to put him in the fairly rated category.
The World Championship record is equalled. Lewis Hamilton wins the Turkish Grand Prix and is a 7-time champion of the world.
Anyone who's a 7-time world champion can't be underrated. They're a 7-time. They can't be overrated because they've proven everything they've set out to do in Formula 1. And the only way to describe Lewis Hamilton, GOAT and fairly rated. He's not a bad driver. You can't overly rate someone who is the best in the world. Over the last couple seasons, yes, you might argue that he is a bit overrated for what he is, but if he goes to Ferrari and absolutely performs miracles and stops their Ferrari curse of not winning, then well, you can't say anything, can you? He's a fairly rated driver and no one will ever take that away from him, ever. You see, on pen and paper, 60-something podiums, 10 wins, that's a good drive. Valtteri Bottas on paper is a great driver, but I'm not sure about that one. In the time when Mercedes managed to win 5 constructors, 4 world championships, Valtteri Bottas only amassed a total of 10 wins. Now he's gone to Sauber and he's pretty much putting up equal performances, sometimes slightly better, sometimes slightly worse than a pretty very much unexperienced teammate in Zhou Guanyu. Now if that doesn't scream overrated as fuck, then I don't know what you're smoking. He was the right driver for Mercedes at the time. He helped Hamilton, he helped the constructors, but to say that he was something special or the amount of money that Sauber are probably paying him, he's overrated, let's be real. Probably should stick to his calendars and all of the things that he's doing, because on track he's arse, and off track the calendars are also arse. Haha, get the joke? Yay, haha. Personally, in my eyes, I see George Russell as a terrorist. Now, what do I say to terrorism? Of course, boo. But this is what he looks like.
George Russell.
I would like to be a terrorist.
Now, putting all of his mistakes aside, he's a great driver. For him to even be hanging next to Lewis Hamilton, beating him on some occasions and just doing better than him on some occasions has to be talked about. He doesn't get as much respect as he probably deserves to. He's a race winner. He's won a race more times than Lewis Hamilton has in the last 3 or so years. He was called Mr. Consistency for his period at Mercedes, and that, well, shortly ended. Now, in my eyes, he's a bit underrated. Anyone who can even hang with Lewis Hamilton is that's insane. And for George Russell to be able to do that 3 seasons, I don't think he gets as much credit as he probably deserves, and that's why he's a bit underrated. Absolute fake and a fraud Lando Norris is. He's so lucky that I'm recording this video now and not a couple weeks ago. Because say it was a couple weeks ago, he is getting instantly, straight away thrown into that overrated category. Failed to secure the win at Sochi. We all know what happened there. And he's fumbled one too many times in his career, but now that he's won in Miami, well, I can't really say anything, can I? At the moment, I'd say he's a fairly rated driver. Everybody loves him, and he's doing bits. Been doing bits for years. Absolutely stellar last year, slapped up Daniel Ricciardo both years he was there. And now this year, a race win? Congrats, Lando. You've done a good job for once in your career. Fairly rated? Yeah, that's what you are. In my eyes, someone who is still criminally underrated after all of these years has to be Carlos Sainz. Not only is he the only non-Red Bull driver to win a race in 2023, he's also put Red Bull and the whole grid in his place in Australia this year. And for him to be disrespected, booted out of Ferrari for, well, let's be real, a pretty ancient driver in Lewis Hamilton, and now be jobless? Yeah, something to me screams underrated. Yes, he might be a 10th or something slower than Charles Leclerc in quali in races on average, but Charles Leclerc, the golden boy of Formula 1, for someone to be that close to him and score Ferrari's last 3 race wins, yeah, screams underrated. At the same time, do I think he has the facilities or capabilities to win a world championship? Probably not, unless he's extremely lucky. But still, to be disrespected like that, and now probably not have a good race car for the next couple years, yeah, that is underrated. But now going to the literal polar opposite end of underrated, now we're going to over... Checo Perez might be the most overrated driver on the grid. Not only is he that hyped up by so many fans, his quali pace, his race pace, the deficit between him and Max Verstappen is pretty similar to what Alex Albon could muster up. Pretty similar to what Pierre Gasly could muster up. But because now their car is so dominant and so fast, it actually looks like he's doing a good job. But he's not. Last year, how many wins did Max Verstappen manage to achieve? And Sergio Perez, 2. This year, 0, and he only has a couple podiums to his name. Being real, he doesn't deserve that race seat whatsoever. It's not his. He's a good driver, but does he deserve the fastest car on the grid? No. What should a good driver be doing with the fastest car on the grid? Winning races, winning championships. And what is Sergio Perez doing? Well, he's battling the Mercedes and Aston Martins in, well, P11, P12. Pathetic. And speaking of Max Verstappen, that is what your average race weekend looks like. And I'm going to be honest, I'm going to put it straight away out there. I think, still to this day, I think Max Verstappen might be a tiny bit underrated by everybody. For him to be this consistent, week in, week out, for this many seasons, beat Lewis Hamilton in 2021, beat Charles Leclerc in 2022, and absolutely go on a rampage, breaking every single record there is. You can't get much better than, what, 15 race wins in a season? You can't. Unless you're Max Verstappen, then you enter into 2023, and you absolutely swipe the floor clean. At the moment, we're living in Max Verstappen's world. He controls it. Whatever he says, he does. He wants to win by 20 seconds, he will win by 20 seconds. And whether you want to admit it now or in like 5 years, 10 years, Max Verstappen will be one of the greatest of all time. And the fact that some people can't understand that now, yeah, a bit underrated, no? To be quite frank with you, that is what an average Lance Stroll race weekend looks like. He's either crashing or he's miles behind his teammate. He was slapped up by Sebastian Vettel. Now he's been absolutely pummeled into the ground like a Cherokee drum by Fernando Alonso. It's not the fact that he has one bad session, one bad race here and there. It's the fact that he's been in the sport for like 7, 8 years. Surely by now he's picked up some experience. Surely he's somewhat good by now. But no, he hasn't had a good performance in Formula 1 for ever. The only reason why he's still in Formula 1 is because his dad owns a team. If he wasn't in that team and he was in, say, Haas, Williams, he'd be booted out of that faster than he could say Formula 1. And the fact that people still give him credit for occasionally sometimes doing a mediocre job, no, he is overrated for what he is and what he brings to the team. It's just, he's literally just a golem taking up a seat in Formula 1, which another good driver could be in. But no, you got Lance Stroll. Overrated as fuck. Get out of here, now. Imagine winning Formula 3, winning Formula 2, putting Alpine in an absolute spliff and disrespecting on them, going into McLaren, replacing Daniel Ricciardo, who's being booted out because of poor performances. Your first year, you score a couple podiums. Second year, you get close to a race win, and there's only been a couple races of the season. And now you and Lando are pretty even on pace. You might be slightly slower, but keep in mind that Lando Norris has been in the sport for, well, ages. That is Oscar Piastri summed up in a couple words. And for you to even say that he is overrated or fairly rated, no. He is underrated. People don't talk about him. People talk about his lows, People talk about his lows, Lando scoring P2s. What are you, scoring P3s, 4s, 5s? Well, guess what? Lando Norris has been doing it for ages. Oscar Piastri, he's a little rookie. He's a little young. Underrated driver, people don't give him as much credit as he probably deserves. Putting up stonking numbers as he is now and, getting pretty close to Lando in his second year. Imagine your teammate in Formula 1 being an 8-time race winner, someone who has fought with the big dogs, fought with Lewis Hamilton, Vettel, he's done it all. And now you're his teammate. Surely you might be a tiny bit scared. What might happen? You might lose, you might get battered. But no, not really. Yuki Tsunoda is standing on business, standing on his nice little 2-feet book, making him a total of 4 feet too tall. For Yuki Tsunoda to be pulling in those numbers as he is now, absolutely dominating Ricciardo in quali in the races as well. That is underrated behavior there. People talk so much about Ricciardo being so good, but I don't hear people talking about Yuki Tsunoda being so good, even though he is battering Ricciardo into the ground harder than Lando Norris did. Daniel Ricciardo, he's already 2 feet deep underground. Soon, Yuki's gonna dig that up 6 feet, and he's gonna be laying there, well, quite sadly. Put some more respect on Yuki Tsunoda's name. You. Yeah, you. That is truly what I want to see more from Alex Albon, but him and the Williams, not sure whether that's possible. Last year, he put up some absolutely stonking numbers in that Williams, putting it into places where it probably shouldn't have been in. Scoring P7s, P8s, qualifying P4 on one occasion. Absolute brilliance from him. And for him to not even be in the debate of one of the best drivers in Formula 1, yeah, I don't know about that one. Me, you, and everybody else knows that him given a good, like an absolute good car, where he feels comfortable, he doesn't feel pressure like he did at Red Bull, we both know that he'd win a race, maybe even contest for a championship. The fact that he's stuck in that treacherous Williams that can't even score points or just breaks down every single second, clucketing like a tractor. You don't really see his pace, we don't really see how good he is, but everybody knows that, well, he is underrated. Give him a good car, he is flying. Not flying off the race circuit like he did in 2020. But, like, actually flying. The underrated GOAT. He will be there one day. Deep in my core, I have a little soft spot for Pierre Gasly. Not only is he a race winner for AlphaTauri, which well, Sebastian Vettel has done as well, but Pierre Gasly has done that. That is more important. What a meaningful race win for him. The fact that he beat Esteban Ocon last year and, well, you can't really do anything in the Alpine this year, can you? It's literally a tractor and a snail merged into one little moving vehicle. There is no real buzz around him. There's not real there's nothing happening around Pierre Gasly. He's just a driver that drives around and doesn't really have much attention on him. And for that single reason, I think he's criminally underrated. Race winner, scored podiums here, there, everywhere. In the Alpine that he's just gone to, he was good. Lando Norris has won a race in a pretty good car. George Russell won a race in a pretty good car. Every single one of Carlos Sainz's wins, every single one of Charles Leclerc's wins, all from a good car. But Pierre Gasly, awful car, race win. Underrated. Now, for Zhou Guanyu to be pretty much similar performance to Valtteri Bottas, a 10-time race winner, and he's won 5 Constructors' Championships with Mercedes, for him to be pretty much similar pace, sometimes maybe a bit faster, sometimes maybe a bit slower, now that is impressive. And for that sole reason, well, I think he's quite fairly rated. He can't be underrated because he's not that good, let's be real. Another season maybe in Formula 1, maybe this season is his last season, who knows? But he's definitely not going to be in Formula 1 for like, ever. Let's be real, he's just your average Joe filler driver who just fills up a team for a couple seasons, then moves on. That's just it's just fairly rated. Come on now. In my most humble opinion, I also think that Kevin Magnussen is pretty fairly rated. He can be an absolute defense demon when needed, and he can be quite fast and quite rapid also when needed. He has a pole position to his name. He has a podium to his name as well. Now, yes, he did peak in his first race ever in Formula 1, and ever since then it's been kind of downhill, but I think he's pretty fairly rated. You can't underrate him because, well, he's all right, and you can't overrate him because he's not the greatest, let's be real. And last but not least, in my opinion, one of the most underrated drivers on the grid, Nico Hülkenberg. Not only can he perform absolute miracles in a Haas where, well, let's be real, Kevin Magnussen is slightly struggling, he's also about to hit his 50s, and he's still doing good. Now signed a contract with Sauber, and he's moving up in the world. From being a good driver to being unemployed for so many years to now absolutely coming back, rising up to glory-ish. No doubt about it, he's underrated. People don't pay as much attention to him as they probably should. With all of that said, in the comments, make your own list. I don't know why you wouldn't, and I also don't know why you wouldn't subscribe and like, because if it kind of makes me sad if you don't. Just do it, please. I hope you enjoyed the video. Have a safe and fantastic rest of your day. Don't fall under a car. Don't die, please, because then you won't be able to watch my videos in the next couple of days. And peace.
That's all, folks.